All right, guys, so today we're going to talk about congruent triangles. So what are congruent triangles? Well, congruent triangles are triangles that just have the same size and shape. So this means that all corresponding parts, now in this case, these are going to be parts that are in the same relative location. So for example, when we were doing our parallel lines cut by transversals, if we had an angle that was in the upper right-hand corner of its quadrant, so let's say it was on the left-hand side of the transversal and above its appropriate parallel line, then those would both be corresponding. So in this case, it's the same thing. Corresponding means in the same location. And in a triangle, the parts are sides and angles. So in congruent triangles, all sides and all angles are also congruent. Now, once you finish filling in this section, go ahead and if you need to, you can always click on the question, but it will be right here on the left-hand or right-hand side. You go over here and mark that you have completed this section. It might not show right here properly, but just give it some time. All right, so you can see here, I decided I didn't like the drop-down menu. I went ahead and select yes here. Now the next one is congruency statements. When triangles are congruent, we can write a congruency statement. So for example, it says here triangle ABC is congruent to triangle DEF. And the order of the angles listed are important. A valid congruency statement must match all corresponding angles and sides. So what I would want you to do here to get credit for filling in this section is you are going to highlight, and again, I'm going to use the painting tool or drawing tool simply because it lets me use a finer point. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mark A, which is one angle marking here, and that's congruent to D. Okay, so I'm going to put A and D. I'm going to look at B, which has two congruency markings, matches E, which also has two congruency markings. And then we have C with three congruency markings. And again, those get marked together. Now you'll notice that the order of the dots that I've done here are in the same. It's green, blue, orange, green, blue, orange. So as long as you are writing them in the same order, green, blue, orange, or orange, blue, green, doesn't matter, then you can write a different congruency statement. So for in this case, we're going to put a triangle. You can hit / triangle. Or you can go ahead and go in here where you have your insert symbols, and it's right here. This is delta or triangle. Okay, so I'm going to say CAB. Okay, I say CAB. And then I'm going to say that's congruent to, again, if you don't want to type them out, it is right here, congruent. And again, that's going to be triangle. And I went orange, green, blue, so I'm going to do the same thing here. Orange, green, blue, so that's going to be FDE. So once you have that copied down and you've highlighted your angles, go ahead and mark this section as complete. All right, so the next important part is a very important acronym that we will use in this unit a lot is Cpctc, which is a little bit of a mouthful to say, but what it means is corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent. So if we already know that two triangles are congruent, then we know that every pair of corresponding parts is also congruent. So that's what we have here. So again, if we say ABC is congruent to DEF, then that means I know that C and F are congruent, B and E are congruent, A and D are congruent. And you can see that they have the same markings. So A to B, for green to blue, is one tick mark. From D to E, green to blue, is one tick mark. So each of these works out that same way. Take a moment, make sure you mark the section as complete when you are done. Okay, for the next section, we're going to list all congruent angles and sides given the congruency statements. So we have triangle JKL is congruent to triangle PQR. So again, what I want to do is go ahead and color code. Again, the first letter goes with the first letter. So J and P. Second letter goes with the second letter. And third letter goes with the third letter. Okay. So what I want you to do is make sure you select the equation editor tool and then click in this box. All right. And we're going to say that angle J is congruent to angle P because I made one of them, both of them are orange. You can hit the tab once you're in the equation editor to move to the next field. And so we have angle K, which I have highlighted in green, is going to be congruent to angle Q, which I also have highlighted in green. And L and R will go together. Now from a congruency statement, how do you determine which sides are congruent? Well, we have J, K, so that's our orange dot, then our green dot. So if we look at our second list of triangles, we have P and Q, which is our orange dot, and then our green dot. So we can do the same thing with KL. I have green blue, so green blue is QR. And then JL is orange blue, and so we're going to put P and R here because that's also orange and blue. Clicking into this field, another valid congruency statement. So if we put, let's KLJ, so that is going to be green, blue, orange. So again, that's going to be green, blue, orange. So we have QRP. Take a moment, make sure you have this copied, and then mark it as complete on the side of the page. All right, number 5, we're going to do the same thing. So again, first thing I want you to do is to highlight the corresponding parts, and I'm going to go ahead and make my dot a little smaller. So my first letter is W, and my first letter is E, so I'm going to color those both orange. And then I have my X and my F, and these are a little hard to see that those are green. Okay, back to 6. Okay, and then G is going to be blue. And Y will be blue. So again, same order. Orange, green, blue, orange, green, blue. Of course, you may use any colors you want to do this color coding, but I promise that if you do the color coding, it is going to be a little bit simpler for you. Okay, and you can click into this field. I will tell you the truth, if you click tab from over here, it's going to put you into the congruency statement. All right, so W is our orange. Our other orange one is E. X is green, so we're going to use F, which is our other green. And then Y, I have highlighted blue, so we're going to put the other blue highlighted angle, which is G. To get into under the overline, you have to hit back. So WX, that's orange green. So we're going to have EF, which is orange green. Now notice this time I give it to you with the second triangle first with FG. Well, that's green and then blue. So that's going to be XY. And EG is orange and then blue. So we're going to put WY. So let's go ahead and make another valid congruency statement. Let's go with blue, orange, green. Okay, so if I went blue, orange, green on one, I have to go blue, orange, green for the other. So again, that's going to be G, E, F for blue, orange, green. Once you have this all copied in, make sure you mark it as done on the left hand or right hand side of your page, or whichever side it is. Just as a heads up, if you happen to accidentally click hide panel and you need it to come back, you just click the question over here and it'll bring them back for you. So make sure you've marked question 5 done. And again, if you don't know, it's over here, you can just click on this question and it will jump there. All right, so for question number 6, I do want you to do the drawings. You'll notice that it is worth 8 points, and that is because there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blanks. But I do also want you to mark the triangle to get full credit. So we have our drawing tool. So first, let's go ahead and highlight our letters in the congruency statement to make it simpler for us. And again, this is going to make it just a little easier to fill in all these statements. It's not going to make it too much more difficult to do other things. So Again, I'm going to go ahead and just highlight the corners. So K and A, P and Y, M and C. Now, of course, if you're not highlighting, if you are doing proper congruence markings, the way that's going to look is you're going to have one arc mark here at K and one with A. And then you'll have an arc mark, dual arc marks here at P and 2 here at Y. And then for same thing with M and C, you'll mark them with the same number of arcs. And then we are going to mark the sides that are congruent. So let's look here from K to P. So from green or orange to green, or angle 1 to angle 2 with 1 arc mark to 2 arc marks. I'm going to hold down shift so I can make a straight line, and I'm going to put 1 tick mark there. The corresponding side is going to be AY. So green to or orange to green. So orange to green, A to Y. We're marking it as a congruent side. Green to blue, P to M. I'm going to go ahead and mark that as a side. And its corresponding side is going to be CY because, again, we have green to blue. And then if we go blue back to orange, we're going to mark those two sides congruent. All right, so if we have angle or side KM, we can look at our image and see that side KM, that's orange to blue, is going to be congruent to side AC, again, orange to blue. I can hit tab and get to my next field. CY is 2 tick marks, and so that's going to be congruent to MP. And they put blue to green, so I'm going to put blue to green. And then finally, line side PK is going to be congruent to side YA, again, green to orange. Angle Y, if we look at our picture, is our green angle with 2 arc marks. It is congruent to angle P. Angle K, based on our congruent statement and our picture, our boat is orange and is congruent to angle A, which is also orange or listed with 1 tick mark. And then ACY, that's going to be orange to blue to green. So of course it's very important. That's going to be angle C right here. ACY is going to be congruent to KMP. Okay, orange, blue, green, orange, blue, green. Now, 2 triangle congruent statements. We have triangle MPK. So that's blue, green, orange. So that's going to be CYA, blue, green, orange. And then we have triangle YAC. That's green, orange, blue. Is going to be congruent to triangle PKM. Again, green, orange, blue. Make sure you get this copied into your notes, and then before we move on, you're going to go ahead and make sure you mark it as done on question number 6 over here. All right, number 7. Given that triangle STW is congruent to triangle BFN. So again, let's go ahead and mark our congruent markings on the congruency statement. So orange with orange. Again, I'm going to go ahead and mark S and B. T and F are both in the middle. So again, we're going to go with T and F. They're going to be marked congruent. And then W and N, W and N. Now I want to go ahead and mark the congruent sides. So let's go S to T. That's green to or orange to green. S to T. This is a very long side. Let's actually go with S to W to make it our 1 marking because it's our shortest side, and that's going to be BN. That's going to be our shortest side. So green or orange to blue, orange to blue. Up next, let's do W to T, and that's green to blue. So green to blue, that's FN. And then BF is orange to green. And then ST is also orange to green. Right, so the easy thing here is now all we have to do is add the measures. So BN right here is congruent to SW. So if SW is 9 centimeters, then BN is 9 centimeters. And yes, you should put the centimeters. TW is this one right here, green and blue with the tick mark. So green and blue right here is our 14 centimeter side. And then finally BF is congruent to ST. So that is going to be our 17 centimeter side. Now we're going to do the angle measures. So angle W is congruent to angle N, which means it's going to be 82 degrees. And again, you can go ahead and use the formula tool, 82 degrees. All right, so then we have the measure of angle B. And the measure of angle B is going to be congruent to the measure of angle S. And angle S is 67 degrees. And then finally, angle F is going to be our unknown here. Okay, because angle B is 67. Angle N is 82. So to find angle F, we're going to take 180 and subtract the sum of the other two angles in the triangle. And we get 31. So the measure of angle F is 31 degrees. Make sure you take a moment, make sure and get this copied down, and then mark it as complete on the right-hand side of the page. All right, so for number 8, we do want to make sure we can recall some of our very important characteristics about isosceles triangles. So we have two sides here that are congruent. Remember, if two sides are congruent, then the angles opposite those sides are also congruent. So that's going to be G and J are going to be congruent to each other regardless of what the measure of angle H is. All right. But we're still going to color code our vertices and our congruency statement. So first we have angle G and angle X. So G and X are congruent. H and Y are congruent. And finally, J and Z are congruent. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add in the arc marks for triangle XYZ. Give me just one moment. All right, so we already have tick marks for GH and HJ. GH and HJ go together, so those are one tick mark each. And so that's green to orange, so green and orange, and blue and green. And that indicates the third side, GJ, is congruent to ZX or XZ. So now we're going to put in the measurements. So GJ is congruent to XZ, so that means it's going to be 18 feet. XY is congruent to GH, which would make it 27 feet. And ZY is also congruent to those sides, so it is 27 feet as well. Now, H is pretty simple because, again, it is given to us. H and Y are congruent as they are corresponding angles. So the measure of angle H is 38 degrees. To find out Z and J, we have Z here and J are going to be congruent to each other. But in order to find out what all of these base angles are, what we're going to do is we are going to need to take 180, subtract 38, and divide by 2. And the reason is that this angle right here is 38 degrees. I have these two angles that are the same. So if I take 180 and subtract the 38, then I can distribute the remainder between Z and X. And that gives us 71 degrees each. And then please take a moment, mark this question as complete. All right, so let's look at number 9. I went ahead and color coded it already so that we can see that U is congruent to T, V is congruent to S, and W is congruent to R, along with the corresponding sides. If you look over at the questions, you'll notice there's a hint. The hint is just simply to let you know how I'm going to be grading this. It is 2 points for each X, Y, and Z. and then 4 points for showing your work. So if you want to do this on a marker board, I would recommend that if it's easy for you to write it down as you're going, or you can write it on a sheet of paper, or if you really want to, you can pause it at the end, make sure you've typed it up. Either way, it is your responsibility for making sure it is filled into your copy of the notes, regardless of which option you choose. So we want to find x, y, and z. So we're going to start with x. We have uv, and that is going to be congruent to ts. All right, so we have that uv or vu is going to be equal to ts. They are congruent, so their lengths are the same. So we have 12x minus 7, and that is going to be equal to 53. I'm going to add 7 to both sides. And that's going to give me that 12x is equal to 60. Divide both sides by 12. And that's going to give me a final answer here of x equals 5. All right, up next we're going to do y, which is along a line SR. So we are going to remind ourselves, again, that segment SR is going to be equal in length to segment VW because they are marked congruent as they're the green and blue sides. So we have 5y is 5y minus 33, sorry, is equal to 57. Let's go ahead and add 33 to both sides. And that gives me 5y is equal to 90. Divide both sides by 5. And that should give us a value of y is equal to 18. Yay, it is. All right, and finally, we're going to go ahead and do z. So let's look at z is with uw. And we know that uw is equal in length to st, or sorry, not st, tr, apologies. uw is 3z plus 14, and that's going to be equal to 50. Okay, now I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. Which is going to leave me with 3x is equal to 36. Divide both sides by 3. And that's going to leave me with an answer of, oops, and I put x in all of these instances. I apologize. Let me fix those. Z will be equal to 12. Make sure you have this part copied down and in your notes, and then make sure you mark this question as completed on the right-hand side. All right, moving on to question number 10. Given that PHS is congruent to CNF, again, they want us to find the values of X, Y, and Z. All right, so I've gone ahead and marked the angles here and the congruent sides so that we can solve. We are going to have to do one simple math problem because we have angle N, which is the same as angle H, but we have nothing to tell us what the measure of angle S is. So first off, let's just go ahead and real quick find the measure of angle S by taking 180 and subtracting the sum of the two known angles of 115 and 36. And this is just going to make it a lot easier for us to do the problems as we get to them. So angle S is 29 degrees. All right. So let's go ahead and solve for X first. So angle H is congruent to angle N. All right. And And again, if you're doing it with this equation editor, you can go here to the symbol palette. You can pick your symbols instead of typing them out, or you can write this on a marker board and then take a picture, or write it on a piece of paper and take a picture. Remember, you do have to put your work on here. So angle H is going to be represented by the expression 6x minus 29, and that's going to be equal to 115. Right, so what I'm going to do is go ahead and add 29 to both sides. And that is going to give me 6x is equal to 144. Yep. Perfect. Okay, and then I'm going to divide both sides by 6. Which will give me an answer for x equals, that makes sense. Yeah, there we go. And make sure you have that one copied down. Next, I want to go ahead and solve for y. Now, y is, see this arrow? It looks like it's on the outside, but it's pointing to the inside. So we follow where the arrow is going, and we're going to, that's right here, sorry. For y, 3y minus 1 is going to the inside, which is going to be 29. Okay, so angle F is congruent to angle S. And angle F is 3y minus 1. And that's going to be set equal to the 29 degrees we calculated that angle S was measured. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add 1 to both sides. And that's going to give me 3y is equal to 30. Divide both sides by 3. And I'm going to end up with an answer of y equals 10. All right, now we're going to finally solve for z. And that's going to be angle C with angle P. So angle C is congruent to angle P, which means I can take 4z minus 32 and set that equal to 36. And then I'm going to add 32 to both sides. And that's going to give me 4z is equal to 68. Divide both sides by 4. And z is going to equal, let's see, 4 into 6 is 1. So once you have this copied down, make sure you mark this question as complete. Now, questions 11 and 12 would be simpler if you drew a picture, but what we're going to do is we're going to do it without the picture using color coding. If you do not want to use color coding, we will have a list as well. So D and J, E and K, F and L. Okay. And then I'm going to make a real quick list just right here because we're doing side lengths this time. So what I want to put is that D equals J, E equals K, F equals L. So if you would prefer not to color code, please make sure you include this list. That will be part of showing your work. And we want to find the values of x and y. So we have x, two expressions with x, df and jl. So we have df is my blue and orange, and jl are also my blue and orange. So d is j, f is l, so df, jl. We can go ahead and solve this one by setting them equal to each other. So first df is going to be equal to jl. Again, because we have our blue D and orange D, blue F, orange J, blue L. All right, so we're going to put 9x minus 23 will be equal to 7x minus 11. I'm going to add 23 to both sides. Which is going to give me 9x is equal to 7x plus 12. I'm going to subtract 7x from both sides, which will give me 2x equals 12. Out of room, we're going to go ahead and divide both sides of that equation by 2, which is going to leave us with an x value of 6. And of course, don't forget to mark this question as complete on the right-hand side. All right, final question is number 12. Again, I'm just going to go ahead and color code to make life a little easier for myself. And since this time it looks like we're dealing with sides and angles, this is going to make it a little more interesting. So again, I'm going to highlight my first letters. I have Q and M. I'm going to color those orange. I'm going to have R and N be my green ones. And then S and P will be my blue ones. Again, you can also make the list of Q, M, R equals N, S equals P. Again, if you prefer not to color code, you do still need to make this list of given information. All right, we need to find the values of X and Y. So let's go ahead and start with X, which is given to us here in relationship to one of the sides. So MP. So first, let's see what MP is going to be equal to. MP is my orange and blue. So I want QS, which is orange and blue. Or you can look over here at your list. MP, first and last. QS, first and last. So I'm going to say that MP is equal to SQ, which is 15, or QS, so that I can keep the consistency of letter order. All right, so MP is 2x plus 1, and that's going to equal 15. We're going to minus 1 from both sides, and we're going to end up with 2x equals 14. Divide both sides by 2. And that's going to leave us with an answer to this problem of x equals 7. And then it wants us to find y. So if we look at what we were given for y, we have that angle M is 17y minus 4. M and Q are congruent, but they did not give me Q. They gave me R and S. So first I need to find the measure of angle Q. So the measure of angle Q equal to 180 minus S and R. S and R are the other two. So that's going to be 84 plus 32. And that gives us 64 degrees. So the measure of angle Q, therefore the measure of angle M. All right, now that we have that information, we can easily solve for y, because angle M is congruent to angle Q. Okay, and what that means is I can say that 17y minus 4 is equal to the 64Q. All right, so now we're going to add 4 to both sides. We're almost done. Please bear with me. We'll be done in just a minute. Some of you are getting bored, and that's okay. All right, so that gives me 17y is equal to 68. I will then divide both sides by 17. And when I run that through the calculator, 68 divided by 17, I got y equals 4. Okay, so those are the notes for congruent parts of corresponding parts of congruent triangles are congruent, and how we would use that information. Make sure you've copied every problem down and that you have marked every problem as complete on the questions on the right-hand side. And hopefully I'll see you soon. Bye.